Welcome to Raising the Circle, the show spotlighting sustainable and circular businesses here in Denmark and all the ideas that come about. Here we dive into the minds of the changemakers, reimagining how we live, how we create, and how we consume in a more regenerative way. Today's story begins in the kitchen, where food and activism intertwine. We're joined by SofiaCitron, a plant-based chef, a holistic nutritionist, and a researcher whose work explores the deep connection between what we eat, how we live, and the stories we tell through food. Her workshops on sustainable food systems, biodiversity, and regenerative agriculture, to cozy gatherings around colorful, nourishing meals, Sophia is cultivating a more caring and connected food culture, one rooted in collaboration rather than competition. With a background in integrated food studies, ethnobotany, and holistic nutrition, she blends science and storytelling with a touch of her own magic. For Sophia, cooking and food is more activism, reimagining food systems, connecting us to the land and to one another. And for one who holds stories and histories and hope for food, this conversation will hopefully feed you. So let's go to Sophia, step into her kitchen, and we're gonna cook up something funny and have a conversation. All right. Thank you, Sophia, for having us.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Super excited to discuss and also cook together. We have a table full of a few things, and we're gonna make a potato salad with a bit of your own twist and your own fusion. And then we'll make a pudding, right?
Yeah, the pudding is already made, but we are going to enjoy the pudding with some fresh strawberries.
Nice.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us a bit of what's on the table and...
Yeah. So the cherries, they are mainly there for some snacks in between. And then we have some new potatoes, which I already cooked. And here I have all the ingredients that you need for making the dressing that I love to make for potato salad. I mean, I'm from Germany, so potato salads are quite common, but I never liked them the way they were made. So I'm happy that I found a way that, I don't know, fits my taste in some ways.
Yes.
Yeah, we have some vegan mayo, which is very easy to make with some oil and mustard and some soya milk. And then you have maple syrup, olive oil, mustard, and lemon juice. And I love dill in it, and radieschen.
Yeah, radishes.
Radishes,
Yeah.
and cucumber, and there's also some cabbage.
Celery root, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or is it different?
No, it is called like kohlrabi, also in Danish,
kohlrabi.
but yeah.
I actually don't even know what that's in.
Yeah, it's
maybe
very
maybe
nice.
it's also kohlrabi.
Yeah,
actually.
maybe it is. Yeah.
I'm Googling it.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to spell kohlrabi. But maybe then we can dive into the first question of where did your love for food begin?
I mean, I would say definitely in my family. We would always cook a lot, like both my parents, my mom and my dad, both differently as well. So I think from a young age, we had a kitchen as our playground where my brother and I could just explore, often also to not the favor of my parents, kind of destroy the kitchen. But so I think I was like really 4 or 5 years old when I started to bake my first quiche Lorraine and look in the baking books. And my grandma, she would also cook a lot, both of my grandmas. So yeah, from a young age, I really started to enjoy baking a lot, baking cakes and experimenting with it. I have a sweet tongue, so that really helped to be curious about that. And then I think also just the cultural aspect of sitting together with a lot of people or a small group and enjoying food and life together and using the time. We would always sit together each evening and eat together and talk about the day or about life or about politics for sure, a lot as well. So for me, it's really like a way of gathering and coming together. And what is not more beautiful than sitting together and eating and enjoying food and talking. So I think that's where it comes from, the starting point at least.
And then it leads into your different life experiences. For example, you studied both integrated food and also holistic nutrition. Yeah. And I'm so curious how these two fields influence your work today.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you move out the first time from your parents' place, you need to cook for yourself on a daily basis. And I think slowly I started to realize that I actually like to focus on plant-based food. At the beginning, I still used cheese and other dairy products. But I think then, especially living in Berlin, where it's so many options that were vegan, like especially ice cream and restaurants, and many people around me that also consumed or ate vegan food, I think that really helped me to be curious about exploring, okay, could I maybe use the recipe of my grandma without an egg? What would happen? Because my grandma had chickens, but I didn't have chickens living in Berlin. So I thought like,
what a dream.
Yeah, what a dream. Yeah, exactly. It's definitely a dream at some point. But yeah, so I think that really shifted and changed. But then also just sometimes questioning like, okay, why should I consume milk from a cow that produces milk actually originally for their baby? And me as a woman, knowing that I can produce milk for a baby felt really, weird and wrong to me. So then I realized, okay, it's so easy to just drink oat milk or make my own oat milk or nut milk in a way. So I think that journey shaped a lot of changing and focusing on what I cook nowadays in a way. And then to your question, sorry, I'm going far away.
Good. Yeah, it's all intersected.
To your question of the integrated and the holistic nutrition, like while I was living in Berlin, I wanted to focus after my political bachelor more into food direction. And understanding a bit more like how the food that we eat affects us, seasonality, processed food, and so on. So I did that, and I think it really, it was really inspiring, but also intense to learn about how our food system is actually really in a bad state, let's say, and how many diseases are also caused by the way we consume food and what we eat and what we consume, and how much we can actually nourish our body when taking care of what we cook and what we consume. So I think that really has like supported my sensation of wanting to really take care of what I put in my body and to look into where can I find seasonal, local, organically sourced produce. And then integrated food studies. When I moved to Copenhagen to study my master in integrated food studies, everything was about learning about the food system and the political and the social aspect, but also the nutrition aspect. So this has just deepened that sensation of understanding, we need to change our food system because our food system has actually a huge impact of our climate change, like a huge impact. We throw away a lot of food, but also just, it became quite complex nowadays. So it's also quite difficult, I guess, for the individual to understand what to do, where to start. So I think these were a lot of topics that we looked into. And then lastly, I think I got really inspired with the topic of ethnobotany, which was the topic I specialized in my studies, to look into how indigenous people around the world live with nature and use plants for food and medicine. And that was really like, I grew up with plant medicine. I never had like
pharmaceutical basis.
Never. And not to say that this is bad, but it was just not something I was used to. And it was beautiful to find in academia that there are actually people that are looking into that and seeing and appreciating how indigenous people are actually so connected to nature, and they regenerate nature in many ways. So I was very grateful that I could find that amazing professor I was working with also afterwards for some qualitative research, and to learn more about many tropical plants I've never heard or seen before.
Yeah. So imagine all of this experimenting with how to make recipes vegan, looking at the history of foods and their indigenous connections, but also looking at food systems.
Yeah.
I imagine that led to the theme of activism, which you say that in your food creations, you want to embody some level of activism. Can you speak more to, how can food in your expression lead to being more activistic?
Yeah, it's a big balance and a challenge as well. It's a good point. I mean, I think for me, everything is political. Everything, like the way we live life, what we buy, what we consume, everything is somehow shaped and formed by the politics we live in or we support. So in that way, I believe that me as an individual I wish to support and nourish local farmers. I wish to support our soil and our nature. And by buying food that is kind of not harming our nature, I wish to share that idea with people and being like, hey, there's Demeter or Bioland or other kind of small regenerative farmers that are doing the most important work, like an amazing job. They are trying to nourish our soil, which is the skin of our planet, right? Without the skin of our planet, the soil, we will not be capable of existing. The highest amount of biodiversity is in the soil. And if we would focus more on regenerative agriculture and plant-based diets, because a huge amount of our climate change is affected by producing a lot of meat in a very conventional way. So I hope also with creating or baking cakes that are vegan, like for example, I prefer to work with schools and with young people and universities, but of course also in maybe bigger events or luxury brands to create awareness and being like, yeah, this is my ethical standard, and if you book me, then I will focus on these produce, and you are paying and supporting that as well. I think, my ethical standards cannot be thrown away. Like, I think I'm very idealistic in that way. Of course, it can be challenging at times because we live in an economical system where people like to spend as least as possible and be as productive as possible. But I believe and hope in taking time, taking care, slow cooking, and regenerating the things we use. And I think it's a big job if you do it alone. I think that's where I believe we need community for being activistic, for changing. You cannot do it by yourself. You need help in these things.
Beautiful ideals and integrity to keep that decision to cook what's organic or local and remain plant-based. I'm sure, and I'm curious if there was a time where that was a bit, pushed, or the boundary was a bit wanting to be crossed, and how do you deal in those situations, and how do you stick to your moral compass?
I mean, I think I learned to communicate my ideals and my ethical standards from the beginning, so people are aware of, if they want to hire me, that this is what I live for. But for sure, I had situations where I maybe needed to collaborate with other chefs or with other people that didn't have these ethical standards, and where we had confrontation and discussions, and where I was just simply saying like, this is not what I agree with. At the end, we would find a middle ground, but I could then also learn or maybe decide, okay, I would not collaborate in this case again, and not in a bad way, but just it doesn't work for me, because I need to feel I can work with people that appreciate the quality of food. And to be honest, like, if you buy food that is grown in such a beautiful way, it also for sure tastes different and nourishes differently, which we studied also in university. And I want to nourish people. If I make food, it's like a complex thing in a way. So,
nourishing their reflection and nourishing their body, and with the nutrients of the food.
And then I think in some situations it can help to then just simplify maybe a dish, to be like, okay, we don't have the budget for the complexity of what I have imagined, but then let's just simplify it, rather than keeping it complex and buying non-organic produce. So I think that's also always a possibility.
Great. And I'm curious, and you touched a little bit about your grandmothers as well, of everyone that I interview, of their childhood and their influence of these themes of sustainability or awareness of where food comes, the food systems. Can you just share a little bit about what environment you grew up in and how that shaped your thoughts today, or maybe they pivoted drastically? Just a bit of a sense of your history.
So I mean, I think both of my parents, for sure, like my dad, he's really like coming from the hippie times, like grinding his own oats and making his own kind of Milchlerbüsli, you call it, like oat infused with water so they ferment the next day, and being really aware of like organic agriculture, going to the farmers markets together on Saturdays or Wednesdays. So I think both my parents were really focusing on supporting these kind of small farmers already. So I think the political aspect from that comes also from there. My dad grew up on a wine farm, and my mom, she always had a fresh garden where she would kind of get her fruits and vegetables. I mean, it was very common, I guess, in general. So my grandma, she would always have like her fresh berries or things from the garden. And growing up, that really inspired me. And I think especially in my 20s, I realized the beauty of it and how much this actually is something I do appreciate. And wish for myself in the future, an own garden and
to grow your own, and maybe those chickens.
Yes, maybe I will start.
Deviate. Yeah, it would be a great time, I think, to put some pieces together. Maybe you can tell us what is on the table.
Yeah, so as I shared, this is like this is some vegan mayonnaise. You make it with oil and some soya milk and some mustard and some vinegar. And you just blend it, and you can use herbs in many ways. I made it simply and plain. And then I like to mix that with some mustard as well. And
tell me if you need my hands.
That would be, and I love to just mix that together.
Okay, first.
So it becomes...
I feel like it's always a treat eating your food. Right. I've been to many, many workshops of Sophia's now. And even a retreat, which you just had for the first time.
It was so beautiful to always... And I think that's also something... like I would not be capable of dreaming and believing in it if it was not with the support of family and friends that remind me that it's okay to be idealistic and to stick to these ethical standards. I think, because you sometimes can doubt yourself for sure, living in a world that is quite fast-paced and focusing on maybe the money part and not so much about the care.
Yeah, and that makes me curious about some of the other workshops that you lead in biodiversity and regenerative agriculture and sustainable food systems. Yeah, can you share a bit more of how you balance this playfulness as we're seeing here, but also this education, and you're going to schools and different ways of sharing this information to educate the youth and to educate individuals?
I mean, I think it's actually probably a combination of digging into also the theme of meditation and sensority. I joined quite a few meditations where we had to touch the food and to connect with the food, which then made me inspired to, for example, in summer, if we talk about biodiversity, I always would share like a PowerPoint presentation where we also see pictures or talk about what does it actually mean, biodiversity linked to food, and to talk about how many incredible different tomatoes there do exist. But in our supermarkets, we usually find maybe cherry tomatoes and the quite hard round tomato.
That don't smell like much and don't taste like much.
Exactly. So we then have the informational background at the beginning, and afterwards we have different, or because I do it with a friend who's an engineer who works at WWF, and or my brother who also does research in food waste with his university. So afterwards we do then workshops where people sit together and they can touch and taste and smell, like first touch and smell at it and look at the form and the shape, and to be connected to the different food or tomatoes that do exist from, that they maybe have never seen before. And then afterwards they have to try it and taste it and think for themselves, what do I taste actually? What is it what I taste? How does this small little yellow tomato taste like? Or how does this big flesh tomato taste like? And we usually bring some fresh sourdough bread or some homemade focaccia. It's beautiful to see how then different groups interact and also talk and share about their experience of eating that tomato, and that they have never tasted such a variety of flavors from eating tomatoes. I guess we're also here in the north, right, in Denmark. We're not in Italy, where it's more common to have a lot of different tomatoes in front of you. So especially there, I feel like it's nice to show, hey, this is the tomato, the conventional tomato from the supermarket, and these are fresh tomatoes from Grønnebønder or from Grøntmarket or from Lindegården, and a friend who has like an amazing regenerative farm, and to just, create that awareness. And I think through touch, taste, you will remember that and envision it. I think just staying there and talking and sharing information is not enough. We really need to experience what it means if we talk about something. And I think with
sensing,
exactly,
all the ways.
So I think that's a little bit the approach, and of course having fun with it as well. The topic, of course, is not like maybe for many they think like, oh, there's so many difficulties if we talk about the food system. But I think I'm just curious about like, what can we do in order to improve it? And I know I will not change the world, but there's small steps we can start with. Maybe by just creating workshops or educating.
Maybe that leads a little bit to this idea of hearing your thoughts on this regenerative food systems and kind of what it means to you, and what would a regenerative food culture look like?
I mean, right now we find often monoculture production, which means you only grow one crop and you just repeat growing that one crop in that soil. And this just causes that the soil becomes less and less fertile, because soil needs variety, soil needs also nourishment. And if you only grow one crop and you on top of it put pesticides in it, at some point the soil will be depleted. So regeneration in that case means, for me, we really think about what does the soil needs in order to be nourished, and not just thinking about us producing fast-paced food, but really understanding we are dependent on the soil, we are part of the ecosystem. So how can we create a symbiosis together? And it's small things like when I visited regenerative farms, or how they would, for example, connect garlic with strawberries. Many of the little animals that love the strawberries as much as we do, they would not go to the strawberries if the garlic is grown next to it. So there are many things we could explore, I believe, and be curious, and there is already so much knowledge in that field. Of course, it just requires a lot of time and care and work to keep these kind of food production on a small scale, and also caring and nourishing for the soil.
So it's a relationship building, this awareness that it needs to be, not only do we extract, we don't want to extract, but to take something that it's nourishing us, but to give it something back as well. So changing, it sounds like this give and take relationship awareness.
Exactly.
And a little salt.
Exactly.
Some lemon I saw.
Lemon and some more olive oil.
It's beginning to look like a really light yellow. And it smells pretty good, probably because of the lemon.
If you want, you can also try. You can also add, instead of lemon, vinegar, white vinegar, which is really amazing.
Maybe for the darker seasons of the year. Thank you, my bad. Yum. I forget how good mustard is often. It's not in my fridge that often. It makes any sandwich or anything popcorn.
I agree.
Yum. Then I would love to hear more a bit of your holistic nutritionist background, and now you're going into a year of studying more of women's health. Kind of to understand, how does food relate to postpartum or being a cyclical being, or even menopause, all of these ways that we as women will transition into and experience throughout our lives. So can you speak a bit more of this intersect of food and women's health?
I mean, like, I would define myself as a woman with a womb and with the hormones that someone that has a womb kind of goes through, a cyclic being. I think growing up and being a woman, you just experience a lot of different things. And I think it was especially in the 20s, getting off of hormones that I took during my whole teenage time, to really feel like, wow, this is how I actually feel in my body without taking any hormones, and how it feels to be a cyclic being, really like having these highs while you ovulate, and then having these absolute lows where I just need to rest during my period. And that's just my personal experience. Of course, every woman is also different and individual. But I realized like the question of like, how can I nourish myself better? And also my other female friends, experiencing them becoming a mom. And how can we care more for each other? And how can we, if we talk about feminism and activism, like, I don't believe it makes sense to squeeze us into a system that is not made for cyclic beings. It's like a 24 cycle that is being expected from you. I cannot be 24/7 perfect and function every day the same. It's simply not possible, because my body functions differently because of my biology. So for me, it's really important to integrate that and to take up space in that way, to communicate to my boss, hey, I'm on my period, I'm not capable to come today to work, or I need a break, or I need to slow down, or I need to soften. Because especially I think the last 5-6 years, experiencing how it is when you have a lot of period cramps, and also seeing a lot of other women that suffer from, for example, endometriosis or other issues, or menopause even, I realized for me, and also for the future generations of women, it is essential to regain that knowledge about our bodies, to regain knowledge about how to care for us, and especially knowing and seeing so many not getting real help from Western medicine, and not in a bad way. Western medicine has amazing things, but I think especially when it comes to female health, they have been neglecting women and female research for decades, and it's slowly starting, but it's not there yet. Like taking hormones or taking painkillers is not what I feel is nourishing for me, to take care of my body when I have pain. It's amazing to, in a short term, but long term, not. So I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that topic, and to learn more about my body and finding ways of nourishing myself, but also then to share it with friends and family, and finding out which plants work good for me. I have a good friend, she's a herbalist, also a plant scientist, and we have completely different constitutions, which just means from an Ayurvedic or Chinese medicine perspective that we desire different plants. So while she's craving like holy basil, like very spicy and warming things, I'm more like, can I have peppermint? Can I have rosemary? So each is also different, and I think that's really important to explore and see. But cramp bark has been one amazing plant to support period cramps or PMS. Everyone needs to explore for themselves for sure, but this was really an amazing plant. Mugwort to take bitters and to start like the blood flow in your body, that can also help to release cramps. Like there are many, many different ways. Raspberry leaves works really great for me a week before my period. I also have a friend, she doesn't like it at all. So it's like trying out and seeing what works. And there's so much more I could say.
Yes.
But food-wise, I think I realized that it's really important for me, especially after ovulation till period. I never did diets or fasting in any ways, but there the body really needs regular food to prepare for the period. And I think if someone wants to do fasting, I would recommend to do it after period to ovulation, and not afterwards, because afterwards you need a high amount of pre-estrogen, and the estrogen level needs to be below, and fasting can really mess up with your hormonal system. So these are a few things of millions of things that we can learn and know about, also besides seed cycling, for example.
How do you speak to those that might come and say, oh, but we need meat, or the need for iron, which might come from salmon instead of spinach.
Yeah.
How would you then speak to those that say, oh, can I actually get what I need from plants?
Yeah.
Or do I need to be eating meat? And now you're primarily a plant-based chef. So how is your knowledge into responding to that skepticism from people?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I believe that if you buy meat that is conventionally produced and the pigs are just inside and don't eat grass from the outside, you're just harming your body by eating this kind of meat. And then it is true, like we need to make sure that we get enough iron and enough B12. I'm in that situation myself where I realize from time to time, especially after period, how my iron level is just very low. And there I recommend also to regularly do blood tests to just see and check in how does your level look like. But then I think it's also being curious and seeing like, okay, which fruits and vegetables have a lot of iron or could contain B12 or even vitamin D, like for example, mushrooms have compounds that can help to actually create in your body the vitamin D production naturally. So there are different kind of possibilities that we can just research on or look into. I love to eat beetroot during my bleeding and also shortly afterwards. There are lentils, legumes. There are many things that can have or hold a lot of nutrients in itself. Of course, we need to make sure that we eat a big variety of ingredients and that we eat enough and that we eat regularly. And I don't believe that there's anything bad about someone eating once per week a slice of meat or eat some kind of dairy or animal products. I think I'm not a, how do you call it, I see the ethical standard point, which is also for me the reason why I don't consume meat. But I think it's finding a balance in general, and I believe that veganism came up so much because we have a situation where people consume every day, twice per day meat from really badly treated animals. And this is just something that is not nourishing for anyone, neither for the environment nor for the animals. Sadly, poorly for the animals, not at all, and also not for humans. So it's not like black and white. It's really finding a balance and figuring out what works for you in a way.
Sounds like educating self, understanding that everyone's biology is different than your biology and mine. We might have some similarities or certain things that would help us similarly. But then choosing what is best for us and also not being
too hard,
perfect or too hard that we are.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, allowing ourselves to be a variety of things.
Yeah, and I guess also like when you buy produce that are grown in a regenerative soil, there are more nutrients in the food, and it is crazy how much more you will get buying these kind of food. Like for example, if you buy blueberries that are grown in Spain and they are harvested while they were premature, they are not fully mature, they don't have the nutrients that you need. Then many minerals, they are so sensitive. If they are being transported from Spain here to Denmark, they will lose so much of their minerals and nutrients in itself. So to understand that as soon as you take or harvest a fruit or vegetables, it kind of loses the quality of the nutrients. So that's why it is so essential to actually focus on local produce, to buy them, because you will nourish yourself on such a higher level. But we sadly are not being taught about these kind of things. Yeah.
So maybe that leads to the other question of, oh no, we've actually talked about the regenerative food systems, but how in your work do you work with regenerative farmers, and how important is that in the food systems of tomorrow? So how do we shift from going to supermarkets but go into this local approach of?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult and complex topic, because like right now in Copenhagen we have like Netto, Lidl and all these supermarkets. They overpower the market, and it's really hard as a small regenerative farm to survive, to simply survive, because you would need to put the prices so higher because you don't produce on a big scale compared to the other supermarkets. I think it would really start with like chefs, consumers, to be like, hey, I want to support this way of living because I know it's good and I try to do of course, I also know that it's such a privilege to go to Kron market. I always set myself a budget because it is so expensive and I could not afford to buy everything there that I want to. But it can be with small things, starting with small things. And then I think there are also now, like for example, my friend, she's part of a project where regenerative farmers, but also Lidl, Netto, and even doctors come together to talk about it, because we also have a huge decline of fertility of humans in men and women linked to pesticides that are being used. So we have a problem or a situation that needs to be faced from all sides, and all kind of aspects of life are being affected by it. I think the state definitely needs to support that vision and to be like, hey, we want to go more forward into the future, which also means not just growing fruits and vegetables in vitro glasses, but actually taking care of our soil.
Mm-hmm.
So
getting the municipalities, the government forces involved, but also to acknowledge that there are pesticides that are harming people. That in and of itself has been a journey to have admittance to that interconnectedness.
Yeah, and still it's not always admitted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would be curious of this, if you have to give advice for somebody that wants to deepen their relationship, and you say, starting small, maybe buying one thing from the farmer's market, or getting curious if there's a farmer's market near you. Do you have other advice for someone who's saying, okay, I'm eating meat 5 times a week.
Yeah.
How can I make these first shifts of these trends, for example, meatless Mondays, or what is your take for those individuals?
I mean, I think to take off the pressure, I think, is the first thing. To really be like, okay, we need to be kind to ourselves. I have never eaten so much meat so for me to transition to not eating meat at all is not a problem. But for sure, sometimes when I smell or see the fricadelle of my grandma, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember how they eat, and I'm...
nostalgia.
The nostalgia, exactly. So I can understand people who eat on a daily basis meat, that it's hard to shift and to find ways. And it takes, of course, also time if you want to cook for yourself. Maybe, I think there's so many recipes out there of plant-based or vegetarian recipes. So maybe it can be like being excited of being like, okay, one evening per week, I'm trying a new recipe and I'm trying out to cook something without meat and seeing how that goes, and being curious about like, oh, there's this vegetable I have never tried. Maybe I want to play with that.
Kohlrabi.
Kohlrabi, yes, exactly.
Playfulness and experimenting, being curious.
Experimenting, and maybe also even integrating not just yourself, but being like, hey, I ask other people or friends to do that together. It's like when you smoke and you want to stop, it's easier to be in a group to kind of change habits. And I think the hardest is for us to change our habits because we are so used to it. And I mean, we look at a lot of studies in university where also it's culturally being seen often as like you're a man or you are healthy if you eat meat because of protein. So I think there's a lot of decondition also of like understanding that it's fine to reduce, and it's amazing to eat a carrot. A carrot is so amazing and tastes so delicious, and you can create so many delicious recipes and meals out of it. So yeah, I would recommend to be curious, to slow down, to take away the pressure, maybe finding some other people that are also curious to explore that, and then allow yourself to play and to... I believe in imperfection, so I think it's really important to also be like, yeah, it's okay the first time to try something out, it's not turning out well. But I think exactly there it's important to not give up, but to be like, okay, I try another time. And I mean, I don't know how many cakes I have baked in my life, but there were for sure also many cakes that didn't turn out well.
Hard to believe.
No, yeah, really.
I believe you.
But so I think that's really something, to allow to not be perfect right at the beginning.
Yeah, good point. And I feel like we make an influence on others more than we think. For example, in some of this curiosity that you're sharing, I had my my dad and my stepmom visit.
Yeah.
And I cooked them only vegetarian for the 3 days they were here a few years ago.
Wow.
And they were so excited about it. They were like, what is it like to eat vegetarian? I'm like, it's going to be amazing. We're going to do it. And I can see my mom also seeing when I cook something that she'll ask in videos because she lives in Chicago, being like, what is that like? And then getting excited about, that she's cooking meatless from time to time. For them, it's still quite rare because of this, I think, relationship that meat has been in, especially in Eastern European and many countries, also in Denmark, right? With how many pigs and how integrated meat is into this culture, and Germany.
Yeah.
Okay, we're adding dill and salt, and I think it's nearly finished, and we're closing to some of the last questions as well.
But I love what you just said. Like, I think it's also, for example, now I had a bigger event for a designer brand, and at the beginning when they wanted to hire me, they were like, oh yeah, do you know another chef, because we would need cheese or things like that. And then at the end I made the cashew ricotta that you know so well, and asking like, hey guys, this is really something that is really required often by other people, and I love that. Can I put that on top of the focaccia instead of real ricotta? And the feedback of people was like, no one was really aware that this is made out of cashews and sage and rosemary and lemon and so on. And people loved it. And I think it's sometimes the fear of like, oh, this is not with cheese, but you should eat the focaccia with like some burrata on top. But then to actually experience, wow, this tasted so good, I want this again, I think is for me also a beautiful experience to sometimes be like, sometimes people just need to taste it and then they maybe get inspired. Mm-hmm. But just the theoretical idea can be very frightening for a few people to be like, do I get even like full with this?
Yes. Yeah. And maybe that's where the relationship to the word vegan versus plant-based can also be noticed, and maybe why you state yourself as a plant-based chef.
Yes. Yeah, I prefer the term plant-based way more, I think, because it has the term plants in it, which is my focus as well. I want to work and eat with plants in general. So
beautiful. Yeah. Good. And then I'm curious of how do you, observing that there is a broken system within farming and the work that you do on biodiversity and educating the awareness of soil, as you mentioned, as being one of the most rich in microorganisms. Yeah. I'm curious how you stay hopeful and energized to build a new way or to educate on the broken system. Yeah, where does the hope and the energy come from?
I mean, I think for me, I would not exist without hope. So for me, this is like, until I will leave that beautiful earth, I will be hopeful about life and about the beauty of life and about humanity, that we can create a lot of beautiful things besides, like Einstein said, there's no limit to stupidness, which I definitely also can relate to. But so I think hope is just like an inner motor to be alive. And then, I don't know, to sense, if I feel injustice or if I see something that is wrong, I'm just wanting to change it without thinking further. I just believe that this should be changed, and then thinking, okay, where can I start with? And I think being active helps me so much more than just reading about things theoretically. So to get out there and to connect with other people, to talk to other people, to have the same vision, I think that's really important to me. Growing up in a city and also being at a school where there were a lot of very privileged people, and many of them always stayed in their bubble without getting out of that box and world. It was so beautiful for me to arrive in Copenhagen and to meet so many people that are also curious and excited to question things and to want to make a change in the world and to support things. So yeah, I think it makes me hopeful to see other people as well, and knowing that I cannot change the world on a big scale, but always understanding it's a butterfly effect, starting what you can do, and then it will just like continue. So, and that's all what I can do. I cannot make it happen now that everyone in the world has enough food, or that we have now all the pig farms taken away in Denmark. It's a process, it's a transition, and humans are slow in that way, so it takes time, and this is what we also need to accept in many ways. But yeah, so just not having this kind of high expectation and pressure of having to change everything at once, but doing it having fun with it. Like I'm not sad about things. Like for sure, sometimes maybe I get frustrated of seeing certain creations. I'm like, why would we do that? But then I'm even more excited of being like, okay, but now we do something good instead. Yeah.
So seeding some of the new ways of rethinking and collaborating, like with you, Mai, who's an engineer background for these workshops, sustainability engineer.
Or Milena, who's like the herbalist, who was a professor or like working in research in plant science, and realizing, oh wow, there's actually also something outside of this kind of scientific world. Like science is amazing
to create.
Yeah, but we have also maybe other things that we can rely on. Look at.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And we can do some cucumber because it's nearly ready.
Yeah.
Which is
that's actually the mandolin of my grandma. It's not the most practical mandolin or the most smooth mandolin, but
it has good design.
Yeah,
like the green and
beautiful. I still love to use it. It's like.
Did she leave you her recipes? Many of her recipes?
Yes, I mean, my mom definitely has all her recipes.
It's your mom's mother?
Yeah.
The mom.
But also the mom of my dad has a lot of recipes. And I also love to use recipes from friends and experiment with them.
Yeah, Sophia is known for not always following a recipe without asking as well. I feel like often I'm like, how do you make that? And you're like, just a bit of this and a bit of that, and I don't know how much exactly.
Yeah.
But it always tastes divine. I think there's some kind of magic that you put into it, which is probably the love and
thank you.
The love from the heart. And I would love to close with some dreaming together.
Yeah.
If you could redesign the food system from scratch, what's one of the first things you would change?
I love that question. It's a question that we integrate into our workshop, actually, especially mine. So
cool to reimagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it is really important to, when we dream or reimagine, sometimes to allow ourselves to just imagine without whether it's realistic or not, and afterwards to see, okay, how can be parts of it integrated. Because we are at a point, and maybe where I would like to go is completely 380 degrees in the other direction, or 180 degrees in the other direction. So, I mean, my dream, I think my dream would be to reduce meat production in such a big amount, and that people would not eat more than once per week meat. That we, like, not to put a specific rule, but to get an idea, because our grandparents, they would eat maybe once per week meat, and then they would use the whole animal, like to really reduce the amount of meat consumption. So we have more land available for small farmers to do regenerative farming and to regenerate the soil, to support regenerative farmers and to also acknowledge their work, because their work is like so important. And it's amazing, everyone who digs into the soil and to grows food for us. That's really an incredible job. I believe we need more community. And once I talked to one man, he mentioned something like, in the north, people created a system where we need to rebuy our community or our villages. And I really see that we need to pay someone to take care of our children. We need to pay someone to cook food for us. We need to pay someone to clean for the things. And I would wish to have, to connect to the idea of community, of like, okay, how can we build that? Do we need to buy land and live there and be part-time in the city, part-time in land. But yeah, I think the focus really on like changing the food system to a more small-scale production and finding a better way of integrating way more regenerative farming, reducing meat production. And I mean, I think around 40% of the world's crop consumption comes from 3 crops, which is corn, rice, and wheat. Okay. And we have, and that already shows monoculture and the focus on, we don't focus on biodiversity in that case, because we have so much more that we can consume, but we don't do that. But then again, many live with famine, so I can also just start from a privileged country like Denmark, and we have so many resources, but I feel like we invest them in things that are maybe not essential for us humans to exist in some ways at times. I would wish also for the government to understand that we need farmers markets, we need regenerative farmers, and that they are willing and open to invest and support that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I understand. Yeah. Localizing the awareness, changing the soil. A lot of the soil in Denmark is used for pig farming or monoculture agriculture.
80% of this, like 60% of Denmark's land is used for agriculture, and of that 80% is used for the conventional pig production, just to produce the food for them, like the corn. So there's just a tiny amount, and we could produce like a lot of pears, apples, like all these things.
In this climate.
In this climate, there are possibilities, and climate is also changing. So I would be very curious, could we do research on what crops will be growing here in the future? What can we do that is kind of efficient in terms of energy? So I believe there are a lot of possibilities. It's more the question, are we willing to focus on that, or are we willing to be in our hamster wheel and staying in the status quo? The same for the government. Are they willing to confront and to not be influenced by lobbyism of meat production and dairy production, but actually really wanting to go in the direction that would be allowing our future generations also to stay on this planet? Not that, I mean, I think the world would probably not miss us as much, but I want to believe that we can change.
As a species working together to reimagine and build for the future of climate change, for example, one of the biggest influencers. And I would love to bring it back to one final thing as we maybe mix together in this piece and get to try it after.
Me too.
We can have a little snack. It's to help our viewers, to leave them with, you mentioned a few things, but to leave them with maybe one thing that they can do today to be more connected with their food and to choose food more consciously. What would you say? You've said a lot.
I think starting with the awareness of where the food comes from maybe could help to simplify, and being like, okay, it sounds a bit complicated to think that the fish was produced in Denmark, sent to China to get out the bones, and then sent back here. Maybe I rather want to buy something where I know the farmer from or something. Maybe starting to think about where the food comes from helps to choose simpler of being like, I focus on things that come from Denmark. I think that could be maybe already helpful in some ways. Or starting with, either local or seasonality or both. For me, it helps to also celebrate food in a way of putting rituals and seeing it as something very beautiful in a way. I don't know, but I'm a Taurus. I love to enjoy life as well. So when enjoying life and enjoying food, maybe that helps also to be like, I want to enjoy it in a way that I know that the food also enjoys, that it got created in a healthy environment. That's maybe a very fairy way of thinking, but
it also feels like gratitude.
Yeah,
that word is gratitude. Thank you for all the farmers
Yes.
that had their hands.
Exactly.
Thank you for the soil, the microbiome
Yeah.
of the soil to produce something sprouting for
Yeah.
it that we need to eat.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
even though it might be fairy, it's something that I think we're needing more and more of in our relationship to food, so that we don't waste so much.
Yeah.
So that we appreciate what we have.
Yeah. Yeah, you put it in the right words. And that reminds me also like of the generation of my parents and of my grandparents, especially. They experienced wars, so my grandparents would never throw out anything. Like they would not waste food that would not exist. If they would have a plastic bag, they would just reuse it. And I think there was a certain humbleness, and also the system was just smaller, so they would know exactly where their food would come from. So maybe there was another connection to the food that they would use. And it's so that's where farmers markets could be very helpful, because you see the person, you talk to the person, and you see like, wow, that person who grew these potatoes actually has a face, and that person has a life, and that person made that for me. I think the anonymity is sometimes, I think, harming to connect and to feel like, what do I actually buy here right now, in a way, or to understand also where the food comes from. So like going to a farmer's market and walking around and tasting the food is also something.
What I hear is building a relationship to the food, to our local environment, to where it's produced, getting more curious about it, being playful and trying. I would tie that bow on today's conversation. Yes. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you so much for coming. It was really amazing.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I create these podcasts to inspire listeners to live more eco-consciously and to help us reimagine our systems with a more sustainable and regenerative lens. If you have any questions, feedback, or you want to get in touch, you can reach me on any one of my social media platforms or email me at raisingthecircle@gmail.com. Now, please do me a favor and spread the word by sharing this podcast with one person that you think might enjoy it. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.